All right, welcome back. This is lecture 2, insurances. So different types of insurance. So one of the insurances you'll have on projects is called builder's risk insurance. So what is builder's risk? Sometimes it's called course of construction or construction all risk insurance. You can go by different names. This type of insurance provides coverage for the buildings and other structures while they are under construction. Typically covers building materials in the contractor's possession and completed work such as the building, structures, foundations, machinery, and equipment, temporary structures such as scaffolding, paving, fencing, outdoor fixtures, lawns, trees, plantings, etc. Basically anything that is constructed by the contractor. It covers property against exposures such as outside theft, vandalism, damage caused by fire, water, wind, and lightning, and also explosions or structural collapse. It doesn't cover typical wear and tear on the structure, employee theft, or manufacturing defects, as well as mechanical breakdowns. So if, obviously the contractor's crane or excavator breaks down and they can't complete a, section of work, or it's down for an extended period of time, it's not covered under builder's risk. That's the contractor's responsibility. Um, it also doesn't take into effect wear and tear on things while the building's being constructed. It covers common parties as additionally insured, including the contractor, subcontractor, engineers, architect, owner, investors, lenders, and other third parties. So you want to make sure that all those names are listed as additionally insured, and they're all covered under the builder's risk. So basically, it's everything that's on the site that the contractor is constructing. It doesn't include other buildings that may be on the same site, only the stuff that's under the contractor's control. Then there's general liability insurance. This is sometimes called commercial general liability or contractor general liability. This type of insurance provides liability protection coverage to the businesses in the case of bodily harm or property damage during the course of business. It covers against faulty workmanship, job related injuries, advertising injuries, which is stolen ideas, evasion of privacy, slander, copyright infringement, things like that, and defamation. Each team member is required to carry their own, as the coverage and terms vary depending on their respective industry. So each contractor and subcontractor has to have their own insurance, general liability insurance, and it can change. Obviously, what a plumber has to do is different than a painter. Also, what is professional liability insurance? So this is typically you see it as errors and omission insurance. This is the type of insurance that provides coverage for a business against claims arising from errors or mistakes in their work. Typically, this is what architects and engineers carry, but some specialty contractors may carry it as well, especially if they're required to have licensed engineers working for them. Then you have workers' compensation insurance. This type of insurance provides coverage designed to protect businesses and contractors when their employees get injured on the job. It provides coverage for medical expenses, missed wages, ongoing recurring costs related to an injury like physical therapy, and legal fees when an injured person sues the policyholder after an accident has occurred. Then you have commercial auto truck insurance. This type of insurance provides coverage for vehicles used by businesses. The coverage provided by commercial insurance is intended to help policyholders avoid high vehicle repair costs, medical expenses, and lawsuits resulting from auto accidents. It provides liability coverage for the employees in the business, physical damage coverage, and medical payments and uninsured motorist coverage. This is not exclusive insurance to any construction projects. Everybody has this. All your subs would have it on their own vehicles, and they typically don't provide copies of that. But they do provide copies as general liability, and the owner builder's risk on behalf of the contractor. All these other insurances typically they're required to have, but are not copies are not provided to the owner, and they only cover the people that are working for them, or anybody that may be unfortunately uh, hurt by one of their employees, but it doesn't cover the entire project. Only it's more like incident related. What insurance is required? The owner will require that the contractor provide certificates of insurance for the builder's risk insurance, general liability insurance, and workers' compensation insurance prior to issuing the notice to proceed. Those are the ones you often see to make sure that the contractor is protected, as well as the owner is protected. So typically those are the ones you see. Building departments may have similar requirements, but typically require the contractor to provide certificate of insurance for general liability insurance and workers' compensation insurance. And then the owner may require the design team to provide certificate of insurance for their professional liability insurance, error and omissions policy, prior to starting the design. So that's typical. Typically, commercial auto truck insurance certificates would only be required when and if there's an accident. So those you'd have an abundance of insurance certificates if every subcontractor and anybody who went to the job site had to provide all that stuff. So you typically stick to the builder's risk, general liability, and workers' comp. Those are the major ones you want, and then anything else would be required when and if you need it. Owner's benefit. So what are owner's benefit for carrying builder's risk insurance? So sometimes owners decide to carry the builder's risk. Usually it's pushed off onto the contractor. So why would you want to carry it? So when you carry the insurance, you're the one who has control ownership. So one of the primary reasons why property owners should procure builder's risk insurance is the aspect of control. As the name insured on the policy, the property owner retains control over crucial aspects of the coverage. This includes the ability to select limits, terms, and conditions that align with the specific needs and risks associated with the project. Claims and process management. When the property owner purchases the builder's risk insurance, they assume control of the claims process. So, in the event of a covered loss or damage during construction, all claim payments are made directly to the property owner, bypassing the contractor. This ensures that the property owner maintains oversight of the funds and can facilitate necessary repairs and replacements promptly. So basically what this is saying is if you carry it, you get to control it. Not only the amount of coverage, but also what happens when you have to file a claim. There's also other benefits, risk and mitigation compliance. So property owners have a vested interest in ensuring that all assets are adequately protected throughout the process. By procuring builder's risk insurance, they can mitigate financial risks associated with property damage, theft, and unforeseen conditions. Seamless coordination. When the property owner takes the initiative to purchase the builder's risk, it facilitates seamless coordination between all parties involved in the project. By assuming responsibility for the insurance coverage, the property owner can ensure that all stakeholders are adequately informed and that the coverage aligns with the project timeline and requirements. Also, flexibility and customization. Every project is unique with its own set of risks and challenges. By purchasing the builder's risk insurance directly and promptly, the property owner gains flexibility to tailor the coverage to suit the specific needs, whether it's a large-scale commercial development or residential renovation. Having control over the insurance decisions allows property owners to safeguard their investments more effectively. So again, these are all the benefits that an owner can get, as well as a contractor, by carrying the insurance. So owners can choose to have the contractor carry it, the builder's risk insurance. The benefit is that the contractor cannot start the construction until it's in place. So if the contractor drags their feet, then all the delays are on them. This will also assume cost risk if premiums are higher than what they carried in their bid. So the contractor will carry a certain amount in their bid. If they drag their feet in procuring it and premiums double, that's on them. The owner can choose to carry the builder's risk on their own. The benefit to this is the owner will have it in place before the contractor starts construction and have more control over the policy. They also assume the cost risk if premiums go up. And they may be other requirements from lenders, investors that may dictate who carries the insurance. So there may be reasons why lenders and investors don't want the owner to carry it. By assuming control of the policy, the owner effectively manages risks, streamlines the claim process, and ensures compliance with regulatory requirements. Also, the owner can also maintain success and integrity of the project. I can personally say that I typically don't see owners carrying it very often. It sounds like there's a lot of benefits to it. I can tell you that usually I see the contractor carry it. It's their risk of the cost, but to the owner's concerns would be control. If something was to happen, now the owner's trying to get reimbursed. So you can see it go both ways. It looks more advantageous for the owner to carry it, but I can personally say that most of the time I see the contractors carry it. I did have a project once, and the owner dragged their feet carrying it, and the contractor had a delay claim because the owner took, for some reason, whoever's representing the owner totally forgot about it. And by the time they got the insurance in place, it was like 2 or 3 weeks. Now the contractor had a delay claim because he started work, but then realized the insurance wasn't in place, so he had to demobilize until they had the insurance because he didn't want to assume that risk. So at least if the contractor's in charge of it, they're not going to start anything without having it in place. If the owner wants to carry it, that's fine. There's more benefits to it by controlling things, but that's only if something bad happens. Hopefully, if everything goes smooth, they don't have to worry about it. So, like I said, I usually see the contractor carry it. Then there's bonds. There's different types of bonds on projects. So, what are different types of construction bonds? So, you have bid bonds. So, a bid bond, it guarantees that the bid proposals on the project are serious and that the contractors can financially support the project if their bid is chosen. If the low bidder decides not to enter into contract, the owner can file a claim against their bond for the difference between them and the second low bidder, unless they can prove that it was accounting error or something. So basically, if you have 5 bidders and they're all around the $2 million range, and the low bidder comes in at 1 million, well, obviously he missed a big piece of scope or something. He shouldn't be that low. So you can actually go after their bond for the difference between the million and the lowest bidder, which may be 2 million. So typically, I haven't seen that happen. Usually, there's some spreadsheet didn't carry a column or something. So usually, it's an accounting error, and they can prove it by correcting the formulas on the spreadsheet. They can show you that, oh, it should have been 1.8 million, not 1 million. But usually, what has to happen, especially in private, federal and state projects, is they have to retract their bid, and the owner goes with the next low bidder. Private, it can all be negotiated, so the owner can do whatever they want. So there's no really rules to the private sector. Performance bonds, these are the bonds that you have to provide as well. And this is to ensure that the contractor adhere to the standards and finish the project laid out in the project contract. If the contractor fails to perform the work, the owner can file a claim against the bond and have the surety complete the project. I haven't had this happen on my projects, thankfully. I've seen it, I've heard horror stories of it. But if, when the contractor defaults on their project, they go bankrupt, somebody's got to finish the project. You don't want a building halfway complete, right? So that's what the performance bond does, is the surety who issues a bond will then hire another contractor to finish it. It happens. I can't say it happens that often, but it does happen. So those are another one of the bonds that are required when the owner wants to issue the contract, that they can guarantee that their project will get finished. It's basically another layer of insurance. And then there's payment bonds. This is the guarantee that the contractor will provide payments to the subcontractors, laborers, suppliers, vendors, and things like that. If the contractor fails to pay any of them, the owner can file a claim against their bond, and then the surety will pay them. So if the contractor is fighting with one of the subcontractors over material for whatever reason, the owner could say, well, we need to get this paid for. So they can file a claim to the surety to pay the subcontractor. On some of the state projects I've dealt with, there is laws that allow subcontractors to bypass the general contractor and file a direct payment claim with the owner. And that's happened too, where the owner would issue a check to the sub. And a lot of times they'll put the sub's name and the contractor's name on it so that there's no, they both have to sign it before it can be cashed. So that's another way of doing it to make sure that the subcontractor is getting paid as well as a portion of it may be part of the contractor, because you don't know what his buyout was. You know, it could be $100,000 for electrical work, but the electrician's really only getting 80, so you can't, pay the electrician 100 because 20 of it's the contractor. So that's why sometimes they do joint checks, so they can at least guarantee both of them get their portion of whatever is outstanding. It is important to review all federal, state, and local requirements of what is required. They may all have different requirements during bidding. So there's different requirements for bonds and insurance and things like that. So on public projects, usually insurance you require builder's risk, general liability, and workers' comp. And bonds, you'd have bid bond, performance bond, and payment bond. But on private projects, pretty much they can have whatever they want. They usually have requirements on insurance and bond, and they're typically not. There's no state laws, statutes, or regulations to follow. It's a private job. You can kind of do whatever you want. It's Wild Wild West. The cost of the bond insurance vary depending on the project type, location, and contractor's history. In general, they usually equate to about 2% of the overall construction cost, excluding the owner's soft cost, which is the design and owner's project management fee. So when I get to change orders, we'll talk about this a little bit more. But usually bond insurance is about 2%. So when you have change orders, if you get 2%, usually don't fight it. If it's higher than that, you'd want documentation to prove why. And usually if it's above that, it's because the contractor has a bad track record. So anyway, and that's it for lecture 2. Continue on to lecture 3, which I'll discuss schedules.